Well, the big story this week was Brian Flores and the lawsuit against the Dolphins, and also involving the Broncos and the New York Giants. And now everyone is in cleanup mode. Everyone is putting out these sweeping statements, irresponsible, defamatory, outrageous, not of our character. All of these very serious and well thought out, lawyered up statements that everyone is putting out. Very strong and aggressive statements. And Stephen Ross obviously issued a very strong statement because the situation that he is involved in could end up with him losing the team. So obviously he is going to come out and be very aggressive, denying the accusations that Brian Flores put in that lawsuit that he was trying to pay to tank games and also tamper with other players. The Broncos and John Elway issued a statement denying any wrongdoing in the hiring process. And the Giants issued a very lengthy and interesting statement. So they've all been accused of wrongdoing. So it's not surprising that they are defending themselves. Of course, you're accused of something wrong. You're going to defend yourself. That's pretty standard. Now, I tend to judge people that answer questions live or do interviews or are caught on the streets. I give them a little more grace. Like, you can say the wrong thing in the moment. We're doing 3 hours of live television. I'm probably going to say something wrong at some point today. It happens. Do 5 days a week. It's live. It's on the board. But when you issue a statement that has certainly been passed by lawyers, has probably passed at minimum 10 hands, written and rewritten and read over and edited, you meant every word that you put out in this statement. So the Giants issued a statement yesterday in response to Brian Flores' lawsuit. And they said in his CBS interview yesterday, Mr. Flores was asked, quote, if clubs have the right to hire the person they think is best qualified for the job, or the person they feel is right for them. Mr. Flores responded, they do. That's very reasonable to me. That is exactly what we did. Now, that is what Brian Flores said, but it's the last part of that statement that stuck out to me. In a very, very lengthy statement, if you have 10 minutes to go read, less is generally more in this situation, but the Giants felt the need to really wax poetic, including an entire itinerary of their interview with Brian Flores. But that little sentence right there is what stuck out to me. That is exactly what we did. Now, many of you don't know me, but I'm pretty snarky and a little petty. And I know a thing or two about sass. So that's why I noticed that. And what we don't need in a situation like this is more animosity and snark. It's giving me dismissal. And when you look at the situation that the NFL is in with black coaches not being hired at the rate that white coaches are being hired, but fired at the same rates, we can all agree, if you're a reasonable person, that this is a problem. It's a situation that needs addressing. The Rooney Rule is in place to help facilitate opportunities and get people in rooms they wouldn't normally be in, but it's obviously not working. So when the Giants come out with a very lengthy statement and feel the need to tag on, that is exactly what we did, I thought, let's probably take a closer look at the Giants overall. Yeah, that is exactly what you did, because that's exactly what you always do. The Giants have never had a black head coach in their 97 years of existence. In almost a century, you have never had a black head coach. 22 coaches, none of them black. And it's not for lack of opportunity, because you hire a new coach every 2 to 3 years. Daboll is the Giants' 22nd head coach since the Giants were founded in 1925. They've also only had 5 black offensive or defensive coordinators with the team during that time. So when you say that's exactly what we did, well, we know that. That is exactly what you do. We had Emmanuel Acho on the show earlier this week, and he pointed out something very interesting about the Giants in this particular situation.
The reports allege that the Giants have only ever interviewed more than one minority candidate since the inception of the Rooney Rule, meaning they are doing the bare minimum. If you only ever do the bare minimum in life, you didn't want to do it anyway. The Giants, since the inception of the Rooney Rule, they hired Coughlin, McAdoo, Shermer, Judge, and now Daboll. 5 coaches, and you only ever interviewed more than one black person one time. If y'all can do the math at home, that's 20% of the time, 1 out of 5. Then you're only doing it because you're forced to.
Now, maybe the Giants didn't do anything wrong here. Maybe they did give Brian Flores a fair shot. But your reputation matters. And in this environment, in this world, where we're all asking for equality, everyone wants a fair shot, which is reasonable to most people. And when you see the results right now, one black head coach in the NFL, we can all agree this is a major issue. So when the Giants put out a statement, having never hired a black head coach in their 97 years of existence, having only had 5 assistant black coaches in almost a century, and having hired what is believed to be the first female hire in Giants coaching staff team history this week, maybe instead of the snarky little comment at the end of Brian Flores' very reasonable statement considering his circumstances, maybe you include something about how you acknowledge that this is an issue for the NFL that has 73% black players. This is an issue for a massive billion-dollar organization that represents this country so well, that represents diversity and opportunity, that represents a kid who can get drafted in the 6th round and go on to be the greatest player of all time. Maybe instead of some snark and sass and completely denying any wrongdoing over the history of our organization, instead, maybe include something about how you plan on helping, how you've had conversations internally about how you want to become more diverse and you'd like to talk to someone, perhaps Brian Flores or others or players, about how you can improve the situation around the NFL, being a cornerstone organization that has existed for 97 years. Now, it's not just the Giants again. Everyone is coming out and defending themselves and very aggressively, which we'll find out how this lawsuit plays out, whether they were right or whether these receipts are going to read very poorly and age badly. But I had to look at that statement several times over, and I really felt like, are you talking to me? Are you talking to me, the consumer, the media member? Are you talking to me, the black woman in a male-dominated industry, mostly run by white male decision makers? Is this what this statement is supposed to make me feel better about this? That's exactly what we did. Did not need the sass, Giants. And when it's a statement that I know lawyers have looked over, because there's a lawsuit, and I know plenty of PR people have poured over, and the presidents and the GMs, and you've gotten many, many eyeballs on this. You all let that go out, knowing exactly how that sounded. It's one thing to defend yourself when you have a reputation for encouraging diversity and hiring accordingly. It's another thing when you look in the mirror. I just think the attitude towards this entire situation is very unnecessarily aggressive, considering that we had another hire yesterday in Doug Peterson, which I think was a good hire. But now this leaves, assuming that the Minnesota Viking jobs is off the table, which we are assuming that it is, that leaves 3 head coaching jobs unoccupied. That is the Texans, that is the Saints, that is the Dolphins. So even if all 3 of those jobs are filled by a black head coach, that would leave us with a grand total of 4 black head coaches in the NFL. Does that number sound good to you? Does it sound like that statement? That's exactly what we did. Does that sound sass appropriate? I'm just saying reasonable people can have a conversation about this without getting hostile. It's very hard to have reasonable conversations about anything that is polarizing anymore. But when you look at the numbers, which you cannot argue, it is a situation that requires everyone's attention, and it doesn't require an extra little bit of attitude. That's how I feel.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.